Hi, Zah. Thank you so much. And happy to share a little bit more about our Career Center and what is it in for yourselves as you join the MBA program here at the UBC Sauder School of Business. I'm sure since the start of the pandemic, and Zah, feel free to go to the next slide, many of you have had to make significant pivots in work and life, and the Business Career Center has really been no different. As much as I'd like to say this picture represents my current workspace, this is not the case. I have 2 kids under 5 and that I have to all manage my work and life balance with, and I'm sure many of you who are in this room today are in a very similar position. And some of you have even potentially even more of a work-life balance that you have to manage around. And some of the comments in the Q&A section that I've seen already, it's because of work, because of COVID, and the aspects of your work, the workload has been heavy. And much of our focus for the last few months really has been to support our current students through uncharted territory of both in how we deliver support and services, and also the adjustments we also have to make in content. And next slide. From the next delivery perspective, our BCC has really fully transformed in terms of all its programming online, whether it's full one-to-one coaching, career workshops, networking events, and even company information sessions. Just like on the academic side, we're trying to intentionally build infrastructure and piloting new activities and making plans for the next academic year. We do know that the economic recovery will take time and the competition for jobs at this moment in time are higher. However, it's certainly not all doom and gloom, and I think the current COVID-19 crisis only enhances the message we've been sending about the future of work that we've been communicating to students for the past few years. And like that quote in the bottom says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So one of the key messages we've really been trying to really push through to our students is really understanding about what you can control during this pandemic and what you can't. And from the perspective that we've taken is that there are incredible opportunities to control how we support our students in the career journey. An example of this, next slide, Zah, is that it includes virtual networking events, such as what I'm showing you here on this page. As some of you who are actually on this panel tonight can attest to, that not only do, I guess, opportunities like this provide an online option to networking, but also provides opportunities to enter into more engaging discussions just because of the nuances that this technology can bring. Even at a career center, we're having to unlearn and relearn the type of content that was relevant during these times. Examples of topics such as, how do you deliver a virtual presentation? Or how do you successfully do a virtual interview? Or even how to check in on your virtual team that you're managing on their mental health, or even how you manage them during this period of time. One of our dean just held a town hall for all our staff at Sauder just a couple of days ago, and he was sharing that one distinguished alumni from the UBC Sauder program that estimated that roughly 80% of most of a company's work will remain the same. And what this means for us, Zah, thank you, next slide, is that the career readiness plan and that we're trying to roll out and is one of those constants that we ensure that our students have an opportunity to prepare themselves for the first job after graduation, or a job 5 years from now. And this includes helping our students focus on learning about themselves, about the market, about how they brand themselves, as well as what their experience says about them and that job search strategy they should pursue. And so, as a final word, before I pass the mic to Paul, and I'll be here available for the Q&A session just after the presentation, is to share about the amazing work that is taking place. One career workshop speaker that we hosted recently mentioned that during a downturn that there are many good investments to be made. And one of those investments is really on yourself. And so I consider this time, and I present to you that potentially doing an MBA program at this stage in your life and this season is a great opportunity for you to double down on yourself and to learn those skills that you want to do to pursue the goals that you have in your career. Thank you, Zah.
Thanks, Ivan. So we're going to move on now, and Paul for the main event. And Paul's going to deliver his lecture. Excuse me here, I'm just battling with a bit of cold. Paul, are you there?
I am. Yes, I'm looking forward to this, sir. Thank you very much. And yeah, I see some 65 attendees are on, and I welcome you. And I'm going to suggest, all right, I can't see you, but I'm going to suggest that you actually stand up and stretch and then come back down again and maybe do that 5 times. Because I don't know about you, but I have been in Zoom meetings all day and all week and all month, and we have to adapt a little bit. So anyway, it looks a bit strange getting up and down, but we can't see you, but it will save you from getting too stiff and mentally stale. Okay, so I think, Zara, you're going to let me share my screen, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to hand this over to you right now in the slideshow, and then you can pick it up on your side.
So this is not so much a mini lecture, and it's more some information, and there's lots of things we could have talked about. So I'll look at the Q&A and also the chat as we go through, and if I see things coming up, then I will try to pick them up in real time. So what I would say is don't feel you need to wait for your questions to be answered at the end, and we'll try and run it a little bit as a dialogue, and we'll see how it goes. So I think you just have to give me sharing access. It's not letting me share right now, unless I... Oh yeah, it does. I beg your pardon. Maybe it was just a slight delay. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm just going to ask if people can see my screen. Can I get a yes from Zar or from Rodrigo?
Yep,
Applied Entrepreneurship. Lovely. Good.
Yes.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, and that is pretty much actually the view on campus a lot of the time, because it never rains in Vancouver. This is, you just need to just check your fake news and make sure that you reference all of the work you do for us in class. If I go down, so very briefly, a little bit about me. You might as well know who you're talking to or who you're going to converse with. And if you're fortunate enough to come and join us at UBC SODA at the RH Lee Graduate School, some of the people that will teach you. We have some fantastic academic researchers in our faculty. I'm privileged and proud to have them as my friends and colleagues. But we also have a number of people like me who are sometimes called pracademics or academic practitioners, people who've spent time in industry. So I spent about 20 years in industry before I spent about 20 years at the university, a bit less than 20 years in industry, but you can work out I'm very old. It's wonderful what Zoom backgrounds can do for you. So I spent most of my time working for Unilever. Many of you will know, consumer packaged goods company, and that was predominantly in Europe. I took a number of sales and marketing and then innovation roles there. It's a long time ago, but it set the foundations for who I am and what I've done professionally. I've spent most of the last 20 years teaching, mainly here at UBC SODA. And for any of you that are kind of tempted to follow me on Twitter, then you'll see that I describe myself not as a teacher, but I use the acronym NIC. Right? What does NIC stand for? I see myself as a navigator, somebody whose job is to inspire my students and my colleagues, a coach, a cheerleader, and a champion for you. So you'll find that I've got colleagues who share the same values, and so that's something to get you started. Beyond teaching, I spend a lot of my time on technology commercialization. And really, this involves connecting nodes across the campus from research labs kind of to the business school and then on to industry to try and get breakthrough science out of university labs so it can have positive societal impact. That's the mission and the motivation. We do it in our credit courses. We do it in our non-credit programs. And what I'm going to talk to you about today around Creative Destruction Lab, where I spent most of my last 4 years, that has been kind of the driving force and being able to have students involved. I see most of the questions in the Q&A are still very operational, so I'll ignore those. I've got colleagues who will deliver those. So in past years when I've done this talk, I've talked predominantly to the innovation and entrepreneurship track. Today, that's going to be one slide, this one. You've read it before I got to it, but it's just to give you a kind of a bit of a feel for it. There is a kind of a double course.
Oh,
yes.
It's Rodrigo here, if I may interrupt, and
Yeah.
it may be just my screen, but I'm wondering if you can share your slides under presenters view so we can see it larger.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I had it so I could go to tabs later, but okay. Let me do that. Okay, just a second. It's actually in full screen, but let me just take these off and.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Does that help?
I think you did. It looks larger in mine screen.
Okay.
Thanks,
You need either glasses or a bigger
glasses
screen.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you mentioned though. So no, it was just so I could get back to some tabs later. But thank you for letting me know. I'm sure others have the same. So I would normally talk to this the STEM students from other faculties, the science, technology, engineering, and medicine students, along with business students, would combine in a course called Technology Entrepreneurship, your opportunity to actually try to build your own meaningful venture. A whole series of specialized courses. I mentioned just 3 there. And then the opportunity in the summer to work on an internship in a scale-up company or working on your own startup. So those were some of the things that we would normally spend the whole of this talk on. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit about Creative Destruction Lab. And in particular, towards the end, about student opportunities and how we have rapidly retooled the program to address the pandemic. So the Creative Destruction Lab, like so many things in research-intensive universities, they're collaborations that work across multiple universities. And Zar mentioned the GNAM network of universities earlier that we're proudly a part of. And here with Creative Destruction Lab, this is currently an 8-university international program, but it will probably expand further. A colleague of ours and an alum of UBC SODA, Jay Agrawal, did his PhD in economics with us some 20 plus years ago now. He founded this at the University of Toronto about 8 years ago. And then about 4 years ago, I approached him about expanding it. And so we were the first expansion partner here at UBC SODA. I'll tell you a bit more about what we do there kind of momentarily, and other partners. And it may be a quirky name, but for those of you who read The Economist magazine, you'll have seen that there's been a long-standing weekly columnist that goes under the name of Schumpeter. And Schumpeter is the 19th century Austrian economist who is credited with the term creative destruction as being a necessary requirement for innovation and rebuilding in industries. So there's kind of a thought for you. So what Jay started off by looking at was why, when we have so much great research in our university labs here in Canada, but in many universities around the world, do we have such a relatively small amount of it that gets commercialized for the benefit of humankind? People can debate whether they think enough is commercialized or not, but if you look at the funding models in many universities around the world, and it's certainly true here at UBC, there's a lot of money goes into research. We've got lots of brilliant scientists working for many years, and there's a bit of a trickle out. Right? So that's what he was looking at. And where else would you look if not at a business school and business students in MBA programs to try to actually be a connecting piece? We were really trying to take a global approach to this rather than to take a single city or single country approach. So it was, how can we get science out of labs and scale its impact? So the question he asked was, why is it harder to build startups outside of Silicon Valley? There were lots of myths, but the myths that were exploded was, it's not a lack of ideas or intellectual capital. It's not a lack of financial capital or effort. And the premise of that we came down to was the primary reason that Silicon Valley was different from most other parts of the world, and certainly for us here in Vancouver, was that there was a failure in an economist's terminology, a failure in the market for high quality judgment. So the premise here is you need to actually have a marketplace, not only of potential scientific founders, but also of people who can give quality advice on how to actually do the difficult task of building businesses, who are coming from experience of having built and scaled businesses and exited them, not people who have got theoretical advice. And so there's been an explosion in the last decade, as you'll know, in incubators and accelerator programs around the world, and startup weekends and hackathons and Shark Tanks and so on. And they're well intended and they're often entertaining and fun, but most of them, not all, but most, have kind of a poor quality output. They dilute quality and fragment resources. So the focus here was on trying to fill that gap, particularly at the early stage and for deep tech ventures. And so you don't have to read all of this here. I can give you a kind of a highlight, but you can see kind of over here, this is us in Vancouver. We were the second CDL site after Toronto, and it's now expanded across the country. And then with partners, Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Oxford University in the UK, and HEC in Paris. So we're now an 8 university-wide network, and we basically, how does the program work? We don't provide physical space. We're not a kind of a traditional kind of accelerated program like that. We're a pop-up program. We have 5 full days on site until about 2 months ago in each of the universities. And what we had in the room is we'd have the venture founders. We would have some of the expert mentors. We would have some scientists who could help to de-risk the technology. And then we would, yes, in the back row, often standing, we would have some MBA students who were in the course who basically had a direct view on how were decisions being made, right, on what things to prioritize on for getting a new technology commercialized. And then one of the objectives that a mentor would set would become the student's project. You wouldn't have a kind of a theoretical project, you'd have that as your real project. So lots of high quality people. And again, we can kind of, this is all on the website. I can go to it momentarily, but you can kind of get a sense of the sorts of people involved and what they've done. And what we typically would do is the process. It starts with a series of matched small group meetings. The founders here getting advice, and then coming into a large room where we focus on objective setting, not presenting or pitching, but objective setting. What are the priorities for the next sprint that will de-risk the business? And so what you'll see is there's a whole series of different specialist streams. And here, this marks in CDL West in Vancouver, we have a prime or general technology stream with a lot of advanced computing. We have a health cohort. And what we've recently announced is the launch this fall of a climate stream. And so focusing on the climate crisis. Once the pandemic is gone, we will still have a climate crisis. So you can see we've got a very wide kind of reach. This last year, we took in 375 ventures across the network, including 50 in Vancouver. This coming year, the target will be just over 500, with about 100 in Vancouver. So it's really operating at scale. About half of those companies will complete the program and get funded. Typical funding round for us, kind of first seed funding, would be about $1.5 million, gives the companies about 12 to 18 months of runway. And they're looking to make their first hires with that money. MBA students in our program, they have a front row seat to kind of making themselves relevant for being hired. So what I was going to do, if I can get back to it on the the tabs, or maybe I just open it up here, is I could show you. You can go to these links later, but on the CDL website, we've got kind of a list of the startup companies. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to pull it back up if you don't mind. So just to give you an example, these are all the companies that have gone through CDL over the years. So what I could do is I can just kind of filter this by West for Vancouver, and you can go and have a look later. They won't be companies you necessarily heard of, because these are companies that have gone from being 1 person to 10 people to some of them now 100 employees. But you can see that there's a large volume, and when you look down at them, you'll see that they're deep tech companies, and I think that's interesting. The other thing that you'll see is, if you're interested, who are some of the people that are involved in these programs, and these are all people we renew annually. And so again, you're just going to get a flavor for it now, but if I just take kind of the people involved locally in Vancouver, when I say locally in Vancouver, it includes people that fly in from San Francisco or from Calgary or occasionally from Hong Kong, etc. What I wanted to, there are also a whole series of corporate partners involved who are looking for talent, both in the companies, but also the students. And so it becomes a great kind of way to move forward. I guess let me go back into full screen for you. So, what I would say then, so there's a question, by the way, there's a question in the channel. Is CDL similar to Mars? No, it's not. So for those of you who are curious, Mars is a program based in Toronto, but it actually supports companies at the moment across the country. But they provide physical space, they provide training, they provide some linkage to investment for sure. But no, it's not a mentorship program in the same way. We have good friendly relationships with many other programs, including Mars. But no, I'd say it's discretely different. So if I get back to the slides, Rodrigo and Zar talked earlier about kind of we're in uncertain times, but uncertain times, it's a test of character really about how you respond. People can feel sorry for themselves and kind of look for someone to blame or hope it will go away. Or I like the apocryphal quote, kind of never let a good crisis go to waste. Of course, there's a serious crisis at play, but there are people that are taking action and that are making positive strides at this time. So you also have got the opportunity, over the next 6, 12, and 24 months, you can look back in 24 months' time and either know that this was a stepping stone and a pivotal time for you to advance your career and your impact on the world, or a time to sit on the sidelines. And there will be people that sit on the sidelines. I don't recommend it. So CDL recovery was a response to the pandemic. As a group of universities and business schools, we said on March the 17th, right? And if you can wind your clock back, I think March the 16th was the day that the US closed its border with Canada and to incoming flights from a number of other countries. And we met the following day and we said, we can sit on the sidelines and wait this out and then kind of surface again, or we can try to use our skills and resources and be relevant. And so from concept to implementation, we launched this program CDL Recovery in 33 days. And when I say implementation, I mean the first session where we had 20 startup companies focused around the pandemic. And again, I'm just going to pop out of here if I can for a second. And the last one I wanted to show you was, again, you can just go to creativedestructionlab.com and you'll find that the top story is Rapid Response Innovation Program. And I'm just orientating you to this. I'm not expecting you to read it here, but what you'll see is we have basically, we're trying to harness our process of objective-based mentoring of breakthrough science, but focused around public health and economic recovery challenges related to the pandemic. And so you can read down. There's a couple of links. This was actually updated yesterday because we're halfway through our program now, and we've been doing weekly intakes online of 20 ventures every week, and we have learned a lot. We've narrowed our thesis, and we're carrying forward on that. So I guess I'll go into full screen. And so if I come down towards the bottom, what are the MBA student opportunities in CDL and also in recovery? We have a formal credit course, and I'll talk. There's a little bit more on that in some upcoming slides, but it gives you the opportunity to work with CDL ventures. So as I alluded to earlier, your assignments aren't some theoretical kind of assessment. It's kind of build a pricing model for company X. And basically, if you do good work, we share it with the clients and the mentors, and it becomes part of your resume. If you don't do good work once, then we give you an opportunity to redo it, right? So it can be shared with the client at a professional level. And don't ask what happens if you don't do good work twice. So this is really a great opportunity to build experience and resume, and it kind of in the next phase, in a few minutes, when we get to our alumni panel, then you've got a kind of at least one of our alumni who was involved in working with a lot of companies there, a few that have worked with some, and so we'll pull on them, and it's just an opportunity to build your network and have experience to the process of what people value. We've had some students each of the last 2 years in post-graduation scholarships that we've funded through the school to basically fund graduate students to work for 4 months with CDL companies. And it's a stepping stone, really, as you graduate, to continue to build your resume out. And I know that one of our panelists can talk to that, because he was one of those scholars. And then what we have done just in this last week, remember, a program that didn't exist kind of only 6 weeks ago. What we've done also is we've built 5 MBA internships for current MBAs, and they started Monday this week, and they're now working with some of the recovery ventures. So the CDL course, then there's a formal credit course that runs. I think I've talked to this, but basically when we share the slides with you kind of later, you'll be able to kind of get a feel of the points. But there's a series of formal and kind of applied versions. So what does the student work look like? Here's some examples for you, right? And I've kind of taken off the students kind of identifying kind of surnames, but what you can see is what was the project objective? Develop a market analysis on segmentation, market sizing, business model, and revenue channels. Recommend a marketing strategy to engage ESL learners. So this was the report that the students did. These were 2 of the objectives that had been set by the mentors for the founder as a condition of them moving forward. So this becomes collateral support material in your resume going forward, in my opinion. And so I've got a few of these. We won't go through all of them, but here's another one. Identify groups of people that make a gig economy, and let's see, here's another one here. And should we expand into kind of geography X or geography Y? Present go-to-market strategies that maximize profit, and so on. So there's a few of these that I had, but we don't need to kind of go through the last couple. So I think that I was going to stop there and actually try and go to questions. I think I was about 20 minutes. So I think we've got a good chunk of time for questions. And what I would do is as the questions come up, we can also kind of flow through into the alumni panel as well, because we've got some great alumni. I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say.
Yeah, Paul, they're just rolling in now. So if anybody feel free to ask Paul any questions that you may have in regards to what you've just heard.
Yeah. So what I might do is I might just stop the screen sharing now. I don't think you need that anymore, and I'll just come back on. And do you want me just to pick questions as I go, or are people going to kind of speak to their own questions? What's the format you want to?
Whatever you're comfortable with. I can feed them to you, or you can choose the ones you like, or choose the ones you want to do. Or
why don't you feed them to me, Zah? And then there's a little break in voices as well. Otherwise, it's me asking myself, and one tends to go a little crazy.
Okay, yeah, I've got a question here from Alejandra asking if having a logistics professional background, how can CDL help me excel in my area?
Yeah, look, I think that's a great question. Look, what I'm going to share with all of the participants on the call is I have a perspective that if you come to do an MBA, you're a career switcher, right? Some of you come in knowing you're career switchers. You kind of have, kind of felt like you've got to a kind of a roadblock in your early career, and others don't know that you're career switchers until you get here, right? So what do I mean by a career switcher? You're taking often a narrow initial skill set and expertise that you've developed, and you're going to build other kind of branches to your tree, shall we say, that will give you opportunities and flexibility. So I think there's two parts then to this answer, Alanda. The first is that I think, can you leverage your logistics expertise in different industries, different geographies, and on early stage technology companies? Absolutely, because some of them will need that. But I think the second thing is you know, it gives you opportunities to build some other non-logistic branches to your professional skill set. You know, so it will be able to say, well, how does logistics actually link to customer satisfaction? You know, it's a pretty logical one. And the delivery didn't come because the logistics, the supply chain was messed up, right? The customer's unhappy. So I think it's the connectivity as much as the application of the expertise, and being able to do it in different live contexts.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I don't see any additional lecture-related questions at the moment, but I think we're pretty much all accounted for at this point. So we can move into the
yeah. I mean, what I would tell everybody, because obviously we're in a bit of a different setup here, but we're doing a lot of online. We're running all of our CDL online at the moment, so we're running with about 80 to 100 people across 9 time zones, and these are often kind of former CEOs, venture capitalists, people who wouldn't easily let their time be wasted. And we're running sessions that run 5 to 6 hours long. And we run them accurately to the minute, and they have use of their mics, but they're very disciplined about them and when we call on them. And so at this point, if there weren't any other questions, I would freeze the session or freeze the class and start to call on you by name, right? However, given that you're not with us yet, I won't put you under that pressure, but I'm just trying to give you a sense that, you know, we value interaction and engagement very highly. So if you're thinking that you want to come and be lectured at and get one-way transmission, we're probably not the right place for you. This is a hands-on, applied, interactive, and team-based learning place. Okay, so sorry to interrupt, Zah, but I just wanted to kind of take that opportunity to kind of tell people what we are and what we're not.
Absolutely, no problem whatsoever. So yeah, I think we're going to move into the alumni panel just now. I'm just going to get this up on my screen so everybody can see us.
By the way, I can see who's coming back, and I'm excited to see you. So first of all, big shout out from me to everybody who's come on here in the net, and Jose and Stuart and Christine and Artem and Susan. So thank you for giving your time, and you know, I think that speaks volumes as well for kind of the spirit amongst the SADA RH Lee MBAs and alum. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Excellent. So thank you to all our alumni. I'm just going to ask if you guys can flick on your cameras so we can get some introductions going so everybody can see who you are. Can you see my screen at the moment?
I can. Yep.
You can see my alumni panel screen? Sorry, I'm working.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I believe we have Jose here, Jose Castilla, Artyom Amjev, Stuart Carroll, Christine Somerville, and Susan Dong. We're just waiting for Nanette Enriquez to join us. So welcome to you all. Thank you very much for sharing this evening with us. Yeah, so there we go. If you guys can just flick on your microphones as well, just so we can hear you. Hello, Stuart. Hello, Susan. Hello, Artyom. Jose, how are you?
Hey, Sam.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So yes, thank you very much again for joining us. We have quite a few people in the room this evening, and I'm very excited to hear about your journey at UBC. Christine, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfectly, yes.
Great, perfect.
And so I've had the opportunity to speak to all of you individually before this, and some of your journeys are very exciting, and I like the opportunity to share that with everybody here. I'm just going to start with a question, and if I can start with, I'll just pose this to, actually, why don't you just all sort of introduce yourselves and give us just a brief summary of who you are and where you are at right now. Can we start with you, Susan?
Hello, everybody. I am currently sitting in my in-laws' house on Salt Spring Island during this pandemic. That's the interesting background.
Sorry, I think you've got a bit of interference on your microphone. If you wouldn't mind just moving away from your collar, that might help a little bit.
Can you hear me better now?
It's a little bit staticky. Is it just me, or is everybody? Can everybody?
Yeah, no, it is staticky. I don't know. Maybe hold your mic up or something. I don't know. It's breaking up.
I have to try on my mobile with the laptop. It's not great.
Okay.
Any better or no?
Yeah, it's not so great.
Okay. Let me just jump off and sign back in on my mobile. It's usually a little better than my laptop.
Okay, no problem. Technical difficulties can be expected these days. So, Jose, why don't we start with you? If you just give us a little brief sort of introduction about yourself, and then we can go into it.
Sure. I'm Jose Hernandez. I'm the CEO of a software company here in Vancouver called TTT Studios. We're around 40 people. I did the program back in 2016. 15, 16. And it's funny that someone asked about the background in logistics. Before coming to the MBA program, I'm originally from Mexico, and before coming to the MBA program, I used to run the sales department on a freight forwarder, which is the last leg on a logistics supply chain. And I came here to Vancouver to do the MBA, and as Paul pointed out, I was looking for a career switch, and I've always been interested in technology, and I got my internship in the company that I currently work for when it was just 8 people, and it's been a very interesting 4 years in that.
Okay, so thank you for that. And Stuart?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to be back. Always love participating and stuff like this. I'm currently in Calgary. Moved here probably 6 months ago. I'm working with now a marketing agency as a marketing advisor. I've had a really interesting journey since the MBA program. This is my 4th role in the last, I guess, call it about a year and a half. So it's been quite an interesting journey. 2 of which, because the company didn't really work out. One was a culture fit, another was kind of a direction and vision misalignment, and one, I knew was kind of more of a little bit of a short-term assistance. But now I'm quite happy in my new role. We work with B2B companies, nonprofits, innovation and technology companies, working on marketing strategies. Starting with a solid brand foundation, and building out a strategy from there, whether it's a digital strategy, content strategy, collateral strategy, whatever that may be, and then all the way through to execution and measurement. I have a background before the MBA program in marketing as well. Actually thought I was going into the MBA program to switch out of marketing, kind of redeveloped a passion for it, along with some entrepreneurship along the way. And, still I'm involved in the startup that I co-founded during the MBA program. I'm still on the board of directors with them. And so UBC has a ton of great opportunities. And yeah, I look forward to sharing a little bit more about my story.
Excellent. Thank you, Stuart. And Artyom.
Hello, do you hear me well?
Again, an interesting background from our last time.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so just thank you again. Thank you for inviting me as well. Really appreciate. And yeah, so maybe a little bit about myself. So I initially, before coming to Vancouver, I'm originally from Russia, from Moscow. So I worked in 2 big corporates, in IBM and KPMG, as a management consultant with different industries, different business problems. And also I started my own company back in Russia. So I was kind of trying to find out what is entrepreneurship means. And actually this was my catalyst to switch a career and apply to Southern MBA. And I did my MBA, I think it was 19 when we graduated. So 2 years ago almost. And yeah, so it was a great way for me to pivot to this entrepreneurship. So I was feeling my some gaps in my knowledges regarding marketing, sales, business development, and generally entrepreneurship and innovation. And yeah, and I worked for CDL companies as well. I was one of the students that Paul mentioned who get some support from CDL and help CDL companies to achieve their objectives. Yeah, and after that, I worked with several other companies as a contractor, and currently I'm working in a digital technology supercluster. So shortly, it means, so basically we are supporting collaborative innovations. It's kind of similar to venture capital, but it's a little bit different in terms of that we are supporting teams. So if you're considering like a team sport, so we are looking for the companies that could form a consortium of and they can solve big problems. Right, so this is a difference with the venture capital, but we're a government and membership-based organization. So we are providing some funding, and we are trying to facilitate the process of solving big problems. So I'm still in this entrepreneurial environment, so working with a lot of startups, working with big companies as well, and on parallel, I also working with small companies, supporting and like enjoying entrepreneurship. And
okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Susan, should we give it another shot?
Can you hear me?
That's perfect. That's nice.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I am on an island, so apologies for the interruption there. My background is in sales. So I studied communication studies on my undergraduate in LA, and I worked in sales for quite a few years before deciding that I wanted to do just a bit more than sales, than frontline sales. And so I applied to the MBA, and I actually applied to the entrepreneurial track. At the time, I was very passionate about starting my own business and follow in the footsteps of my parents. But in the program, I really gravitated towards the product and service management track and really enjoyed some of the classes taught by Tim Silk. So as a salesperson with a sales background, understanding consumers and what they're really needing and how to deliver what they need in a strategic way, that just led me down the marketing track. So when I graduated, I went to join A&W and worked there for 5 years before recently switching over to a new role in the entertainment industry. And so been at William F. White for just over 6 months now, and it's quite the drastic difference from A&W. So happy to get into more of that later on if it comes up, but it's been a really great experience since the MBA to really apply what I've learned and just solve some real world case studies. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Nanette, welcome. We were just going around the room and everybody was just giving a brief introduction of themselves and to the crowd out here.
Awesome. Thank you. Good to see some familiar faces and to talk a little bit about the program and how it shifted. So just a brief intro. I'm from Venezuela. I'm Venezuelan Canadian. Worked for a bunch of time in market research, advertising marketing. The MBA was really, and one of the reasons I picked this program was the entrepreneurship side. And I think it really shifted my career. Before, as a marketer, you always want to work in like P&G and like all the big firms and you have a lot of data, you have a lot of stuff. But then I think through the journey, it was a lot about finding yourself and what you're passionate about, which is, for me, was helping things grow. So I think I've kind of evolved a little bit from just a marketeer, a CPG from a big company to try to help small companies grow. So right now through the MBA, I co-founded a company called Barrowwise, which is doing really, really well right now. Super proud of it. Also did CDL, so saw a bunch of companies there. Did Hatch, the incubator program, and seeing companies evolve. I think it's my passion, and being maybe a little bit part of it. That is just telling an idea one day of something you know, or something you've seen. And right now I'm in Terramera, which is a agriculture startup in Vancouver, doing awesome things and helping the company grow. So I think I really liked seeing Paul from the beginning and understanding that entrepreneurship has different sides to it. And it's not just, it doesn't necessarily have to be you being an entrepreneur, which I've been and I want to be again, but also it could be in the size of the company. And helping a company grow. So it's that entrepreneurship side. And I think this program is amazing for that. And well, I'm here, I'm a marketing manager for Terramera right now, starting my second company right now, founding that, and happy to meet and to answer any questions.
Excellent, thank you so much. Christine, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Is there any chance you could enable your camera so we could see you?
It says it is. That's strange. Try toggling it on and off here.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, weird. It said already sharing video, but hey, fun times working from home. But yeah.
Yeah, so just a little brief intro before we get into it of yourself. So some of our prospective students can get an idea of you and where you started and so on.
Yeah, for sure. So hi, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time tonight and happy to be here. So I definitely use the MBA catalyst to do a pretty drastic makeover to my career. So I was an engineer working in Calgary in the oil and gas sector. So I really use the MBA as that pretty major tool to really change what I was doing. Through that MBA experience, I really don't think I'd be where I was today. Just with like the network that you form, again, the team-based sort of practical hands-on education you get there really sets you up well for that transition. Lots of experience to play with entrepreneurship and see if it's a good fit for you. So that was definitely something that attracted me to it. Post MBA, I'm the business development manager at Front Funders. So similar to the other panelists tonight, it's sort of venture capital-esque, but it's investment crowdfunding. So again, working on sort of the investment side, helping founders find financing for their startups. And then also running some of the operations and product development initiatives for a digital health company in Vancouver. So I'll keep it short because I know we're running a little over time.
Sure, thank you, thank you. So guys, I just wanted to throw this out there. Maybe we'll start off with Annette. How did the MBA program specifically change your career trajectory?
Yeah, so I think I alluded a little bit to it, but I'll keep it short this time. So I think before you have a lot of, and I think coming from a different background, you think corporate is kind of your way to go. And then I think you set expectations, but then you start knowing a little bit what you want and you start seeing what it actually is. So for me, entrepreneurship was always like a myth. It's something, oh, well, maybe I want to do it, but I don't know what it feels like. And I think this program particularly makes you feel it if you want to do it. So something like Techie, CDL, you could see the different sides, going through it 100% and seeing if it's for you or not, or going through the CDL and being part of helping out a small business. So for me, completely changed my trajectory before. And I would say like, I wanted to be, I don't know, part of PepsiCo, Nestle, incredible companies and help them grow. But my impact would be very slim. But after the MBA is more, you know what, like I want to do my own things or help smaller companies really grow. So
how did that equip you in the real world, in real world terms, your experience at UBC?
So I think going through it 100%, whereas my corporate experience was very large companies, Publicis, Ipsos, Suntory, Saram. corporate world, the entrepreneurship side was a myth. Actually going in those foot and understanding what it was, being flexible, now going to Terramera, I don't think I would have been able to do that jump from really corporate, large company, multinational, to a startup, so 100 people, but the MBA kind of give you that experience to then be flexible, know what you can expect when you're working for the small companies, kind of becoming more flexible through pain, a little bit of pain. I think when you come from a structure and corporate world, you expect certain things, but now you kind of have to live through entrepreneurship. And for some people, it's not it, but it's better to feel it and to be part of it, and then realize if you can do it and train you for that. I don't think I could be and I'm really honest about that. I think my transition would have been really, really painful. Or there's people that go into a company like Terramera or other companies and be like, this is not my fit. I think maybe if I would have done corporate startup, I wouldn't find that fit. But I think going through the MBA and realize, okay, I did the startup. I kind of learned how to adapt. Some things I'm still in the corporate side, but you can take the best of both worlds in a way. You know how to adapt, you know how to take frameworks and good experiences from corporate as well.
And Jose, I mean, you started off in global logistics and you're now at TTT Studios. How did the MBA influence that career trajectory? So you're just gonna have to switch on your microphone there for us.
Yeah, I was saying, actually, I started as a lawyer, so it's even a bigger jump than that. And then I tried to move to entrepreneurship as well, similar trajectory than other alumni. Worked for Yellow Pages for a bit. They were doing something similar to what I was trying to do at the time. My first boss from the law firm called me and said, we're going to start a logistics company. My brother has a couple of contracts with some airlines. So are you interested? And I said, yes, without knowing a lot. And I learned a bit of how to grow a company, mostly on the sales side. I was not responsible for the whole operation, but it helped me a lot. So by the time I joined the program, I also took the entrepreneurial track, and I was already focused on making that career change. And I guess what the MBA did was it gave me real life experience on that specific journey. So what are the things that you have to consider when you're looking to not just start, but also improve any companies? There are certain courses, the marketing courses that Suzanne alluded to, but the tech entrepreneurship, CDL, growing and exiting a venture, there are courses that are definitely great for the type of companies that you end up managing after the career. And in TTT Studios in particular, I say I apply this on a daily basis. Particularly the concept of we're a custom software studio, so we get anywhere from startups to enterprise customers telling us their problems, and we have to come up with technical solutions for their problems. So it's very common that we apply lean methodologies or design thinking methodologies that you learn during the MBA program. So that is a lot of my day to day.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And Stuart, you had a pretty busy time at UBC, and you've done a lot of interesting things in terms of founding a company and working with the Hatch Incubator, studying within the UBC ecosystem. How did the MBA change your career trajectory?
Absolutely. For me, it was so transformational, so life-changing. I took the challenge to do absolutely everything that I could within the program to get as much out of it as I could, and I had a great time doing it. There was, some stressful, challenging times, but, it was a lot of really incredible opportunities. So I did my internship with E at UBC, which is kind of the entrepreneurship hub, and they have the Hatch Incubator, which is, the step 3 almost along in the entrepreneurship journey. Once you have your idea and customer discovery and market validation and MVP, and you're really kind of moving up to, become a, fully sustainable high growth company before you get to CDL. So we got to work with a bunch of companies within the Hatch ecosystem on, business development projects, financial modeling, market entry planning. So it was really an incredible experience to work with, really, really talented entrepreneurs and help them with some of their gap areas in their company. When you're starting a company, you don't have everything. So when you can get some extra resources to help you with, a new market analysis, it was exciting for us to be able to give them some real value. I also did the strategy consulting mentorship program, which was a great experience to get, kind of trained to be a management consultant. So that was really exciting too. I went all in on the global immersion experience. We went to Tel Aviv, Israel, went with Teresa Pan. Hi, Teresa. And that was incredible. I actually ended up working with a company that was based in Israel for probably about a year and a half coming out of the program. It was a sports technology company. I was managing, North American marketing efforts essentially to sell a software as a service program. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without the MBA program. It really is what taught me to be way more strategic and have this kind of 30,000 foot view about how to build a business, whether it's a small business or a big business. You kind of have to always have a strategy and know where you're going and be willing to take some risks and try some things and learn as quickly as you can. Obviously, that mindset doesn't flow with a lot of corporate entities, but as Nanette said, you can be that entrepreneurial role within a company and have that risk-taking mentality and willing to try new things. And so again, yeah, the MBA program was so crucial in forming that really strategic direction, and I was kind of narrowing in my career before the program, and it enabled me to just widen up my opportunities so dramatically. And I've been able to work with a ton of great companies to learn about a lot of really interesting and exciting industries. And yeah, I'm excited this is only the beginning. I've got a lot of life learning left to do, but the MBA certainly has accelerated that pace.
Great. And Artyom, when I spoke to you earlier, you spoke about the opportunity to be in the room with major players in terms of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Vancouver. Can you speak a little bit about that and how that helped you in terms of where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I was part of CDL, as I said before, and I was in a room, and I also helped ventures to achieve the objectives. Yeah, so the experience is really very transformative because you have access to one of the best and brightest minds, I think, in the country and also all over the world. So I'm not sure Paul mentioned, but CDL is international programs. I think half of the ventures are from abroad. So you have a chance to work with US companies as well and like other countries. So this is very valuable, and this is a way for me. It was a way for me to build a network. Yeah, so as you know, I'm from other countries, so I came here like without any like understanding how it works. So it was a great way for me to explore the local ecosystem of the companies, of the venture capital firms, of the scientists. So it's a tremendous opportunity. I think it's definitely one of the competitive advantage of UBC Sauder, the access to CDL and opportunity to work with such an amazing people there. Yeah, and yeah, definitely it helped me to transform to my current role. Yeah, and I still in contact with the ventures that I worked before, and sometimes I help them with different things. So we are like trying to help each other, like also like inviting them to join Supercluster and to form a projects around our topics. Yeah, so it's excellent way to expand the network here and to kind of diverge into this ecosystem.
Thank you, Susan. You've had a bit of a career switch? I mean, you were A&W, you're now working for William F. White. What was the impact on the MBA in terms of your current path? How did it equip you to deal with your current job? Can you? I think she's frozen. Okay. I'll pass it on to Christine.
Oh.
Are you there, Susan? Okay. So I'll pass that question on to Susan. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Sorry, I'm just having spotty Wi-Fi here.
Not a problem.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, absolutely. So just in terms of your career trajectory, you were A&W for a while, and now you're at William F. White. How did the MBA prepare you for, in terms of your career trajectory and where you are now?
Well, I mean, I was doing, essentially door-to-door sales before the MBA. So the MBA really was a stepping stone. And I would say it was an accelerator into a career in marketing and a really strategic marketing. So at A&W, I mean, I started as an assistant marketing manager, but over the last 5 years, I really got a really great experience being part of strategy creation at a large corporation. I mean, A&W has close to 1,000 locations across Canada. So it is a very, very strategic organization. And so, going from someone who was in frontline sales to a marketing strategy role, I only could have done that with my MBA experience and the MBA internship. And then fast forward to now, I mean, I'm at a different corporation, but a very different corporation. And I would say not traditionally strategic in any way, but it's grown very organically. And so applying those kind of strategy creation learnings as well as the MBA in this new, it's kind of like a startup environment, but it looks like a corporation. So it's been a real interesting case study for me with the transition between A&W and William F. White. And again, I think I'm only able to thrive in this new environment and adapt because of what I really went through during the MBA. I had those building blocks ready to go. And so it's just a matter of when do you pull out the toolbox, and what tool do you use for the problem at hand.
Sorry about that. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat box for you guys. Was there a specific class or event that was memorable to you in your time in the Sauder MBA program? So I'm just going to open that up. Whoever wants to answer that first. What was the class or event that was memorable to you in your time at the Sauder MBA program?
I can share.
Sure.
So just on the entrepreneurship track and what we've been focusing on is one of the great elements that Sauder delivers is that practical and experiential based learning. So play around with the entrepreneurship option. So I really enjoyed obviously the CDL class, the new product development class, and growing and exiting a venture. Really forced you to take the theories that you had learned in a couple lectures and then immediately apply them to kind of a safe space, I guess, to play with your own startup. And then definitely entrepreneurial finance was a pretty good one. That was led by one of the managing partners of one of the local venture capital firms in Vancouver. He was very, very hardcore in calling out students on the class, but it really forced you to engage and be on top of the material. And at the end, I think that experience was definitely worthwhile. I know Paul did quite a bit of that too, and it just really reinforces the engagement and the collaboration. You end up learning so much more. And then I guess one of the really, on more of the extracurricular side, there was a really great competition called the Reboot Weekend in the fall. Have 48 hours over a weekend to create an idea or a product around that. So that was a pretty awesome opportunity as well.
Anybody else? I'm sure there must be something that stands out. No?
I can't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stuart.
Well, I was going to say, I actually really thoroughly enjoyed tech entrepreneurship. It didn't think so as much at the time. You know, there was a lot of the monotonous weekly summaries of interviews, and all of the deliverables were challenging during, you know, a hectic course load anyway. But it was such a fun process to really, you form a team, you know, 3 MBAs and 3 graduate STEM students, typically is some variation there. And you come up with some ideas, you validate them, and you pick one, you test it on the market, and you build a company out of it. And so Nanette's company came out of that class. They went through CDL, and again, they're doing incredible now. My company came out of that class. We've hit some roadblocks. COVID-19 certainly slowed us down a little bit, but still operational and came out of that class. And you know, there's so many great companies have come out of that class. Some take a little longer to develop, but you learn so many fundamental skills that help you not only in entrepreneurship, but in building you know, your career. And again, this idea of fail fast, fail forward, and you know, test with the market. Ask your customer what they, you know, not what they want, but you know, really try to understand their pains. And you know, that attitude alone really helps me a lot in marketing. So yeah, when I think back on it, that was certainly a highlight. And shout out to entrepreneurial finance as well. I think that was right up there for one of the most challenging courses, but probably one of the most rewarding as well.
And Jose, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was actually going to tie it with one of the other questions, which talks about the workload. And it really depends how you manage yourself. I don't think you can escape P1 and P2. So if you're right now concerned about the GRE or the GMAT, that's nothing compared to the first 2 periods. The workload is intense. And then depends on the track you decide to join. Definitely the entrepreneurial track will keep you very, very busy. But as Stuart was saying, it's things that you value a lot in the moment, but mostly after the fact, when you actually see how helpful those tools are in the real world. So that's my point.
Yeah, and I have a question here for Nanette. Was your market research experience relevant in contributing to any specific MBA class, project, or event?
So I would say yes and no. So my background is in Ipsos, which is a large market research firm, and it's very methodologic. I can't say that word properly, but very method oriented and scientific method. So I had some of that, but at the same time, we are in entrepreneurship, and you cannot have things perfect and in perfect design, because that would take you forever. So I think being able to adapt, being able to bring a little bit of that knowledge from market research, which is key to launching a business and understanding your customer, and saying, oh, maybe we should ask things this way, but also not being, let's say, completely like, scientific in the sense, no, we can only ask it this way, but also being flexible and knowing you evolve over time. And in entrepreneurship, you have to test as soon as possible. You need to talk to people as much as you can. So I think, yes, in terms of how to ask things, the scientific approach, how to frame some frameworks, how to add value in that sense. But also, I think then I have that other side where the MBA program is, no, you also have to be flexible. We're not a CPG company where we take 6 months to build a study, we roll it out, and we make decisions in a year. This is very organic, and you have to kind of incorporate best practices, but also adapt and make it work so you can make quick decisions, which is part of entrepreneurship.
Okay. And general question, have you been able to apply most of what, and this is for everybody, you learned in the MBA program? Question from...
I can add to this.
Sure.
Yeah, so definitely yes. I would say that even now, sometimes I open the lectures and open the slides, and looking for some framework, some approaches that we learn and apply to the real world problems. So for example, evaluation of the company, right? So I did a couple of projects to assess how much company costs. So we had a very good couple of actually courses at MBA around venture capital and entrepreneurial finance, with very detailed information about how it should be done. So yeah, definitely this is one that I'm using even now. Also, like everything around growing and exiting venture and tech entrepreneurship. It's all about like how to form a board, how to do product market fit, how to do financial modeling. So there are like a lot of valuable information that I learned, and I apply it like regularly. It's my day-to-day. So definitely it's very applicable knowledge that we get. It's not practical. I think it's very, very much applied.
And what would you say was the most challenging part? I'll throw that out there as well. The most challenging part of your MBA journey?
I can speak to that. I guess the beginning, I mentioned it a little bit. In the beginning, what happens is you're adjusting to everything, not only on the student life, but also on the personal side. Most of the people in the program move from another city, so just getting used to that is tough. But also the workload at the beginning. Someone was talking about hours per week. I don't have a count, but I don't even remember how much time I've invested in P1 and P2. But the great part is that you're investing that time in yourself. All of the things that you learn there are going to be helpful, but also you end up building a lot of capacity. So by the time you're in the other parts of the program, you can do things quite fast. I remember the first time, and this was a poll case. It took us probably 2 or 3 days of debating. And at the end of the MBA program, I remember I had the same team for whatever reasons, and it took us 3 hours. So there is clearly an improvement that goes along the way, but I guess the beginning was the toughest part for me.
And in terms of, if you could go back and sort of meet yourself in the past, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
Research about Vancouver first. An amazing place to live. That would be the first thing I would say to myself. And think about Canada as a really strong option. It's kind of a beacon of light in the world right now. It's a very rare place where everybody is accepted. If you come from abroad, you really have the chance to be a first-class citizen. So I would say that. I mean, we've talked a lot about the program, but on the personal side, there's a lot of things that you have to consider, and that I think makes Sauder a very, very strong option.
What about you, Stuart? What would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to slow down for sure. I run at everything full speed, and it goes by so quickly. And sometimes you end up following a path that, you look back, you're like, oh, I probably should have recognized that and maybe done something else instead. And, it really is a good opportunity to find yourself and, discover your values and your passion again. And so, I've been on a little bit of a zigzag, since, and some of that, I guess, is become just running full speed at an opportunity, which is great. But, it's great to slow down and enjoy some things a little bit more. You don't have to do everything, but certainly try if you can, but certainly just slow down and enjoy it and take it all in.
I've got another question here. Did the program help you to discover talents that you didn't know you had, and how did it help you to develop them? Open question.
I'll go take that one. I'll just circle back actually to another question as well. I felt like I don't use everything that I learned in the MBA on a daily basis, but I'm really confident that those tools are there and I can pull on it whenever they do arise. I think for me, the MBA was a bit more like a buffet, but then I really quickly realized that there was a section of the buffet that I really liked. And so I went back a few more times for that particular section. And, you know, I happen to be working in that area now in marketing strategy. But I know that, you know, I try the others, and when something that requires those skills come up, I can really pull on those levers that I know I've got. But in terms of like strength, I definitely didn't realize I have the strategic abilities. And I think most of it has been honed over the years through a combination of what we've learned in the classroom, but networking and through, you know, on the job experience. But I think because you're able to go through this program that is so general, it can be so general, and you can still take what you learn, apply into your role. Those are strengths that, you know, you probably don't realize you have today, but once you've completed the program, that's something that you definitely will be able to do and have to do. So it's a pretty great secret weapon.
And so in terms of what you would say to someone who's applying or thinking of applying to this program, what tips would you give them? Another open question for anybody to answer. What tips would you give a prospective student who's thinking of coming to UBC?
So I'll be a little bit of a bridge between Stu and Susan, where I went completely hard on trying everything. It maybe even lost myself along the way. Like, I don't regret it. Like the buffet, if you literally put everything on the plate, then you might get sick. But I think it's early on, it's a great opportunity because it's very rare in life that you have an opportunity to do that. Like when right now in our careers, we already had a job, we already have something, but we have question marks about other areas. So it's a de-risking, it's a great time to early on experiment and try the different things. And then once you see what kind of things you like, then you can go hard on those and really focus and then hone in. But I think even through internships, I think a lot of people, it's how do you pivot? How do you try to do something different that you've done? Even if it doesn't work out, worst case, you worked in 3-4 months somewhere, and it's not the same as quitting your job, going to a job, and then having to resign. So I think it's an incredible opportunity to the buffet, to try different things. But then my advice would be, okay, try it, but then try to focus a bit more, because you can just have all of everything. So, and that would be a little bit of my advice too, is the balance side to it, I think. And it's part of Vancouver, it's I think versus other countries, versus other places, Vancouver has a very balanced lifestyle in terms of health, profession, opportunity. So also take care of yourself and of your health and the things that matter.
And another open question to the panel, why UBC over other Canadian programs? Why did you decide to go in this direction as opposed to going somewhere else? So I haven't heard from Christine in a while. Would you mind addressing that one?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, it was very much a mix between personal and career drivers, of course. For me, I wanted to be, it was nice that you're coming into the MBA program with a little bit more experience. You're a little bit older, hopefully a little bit more mature. When you're 18, you know, at least in my experience, it was kind of expected that I would just go to university. And, you know, cognitively, you know, at that age, you're kind of thinking much more short term. You don't really have that experience to be thinking longer term. So for me, I was trying to be very intentional on trying to picture how I wanted my life to look, not just after the MBA, but 5, 10, 20 years after the MBA. You know, there's definitely appeal from other programs in the country. Like we're very lucky to have lots of prestigious programs to consider in Canada. But for me, it was not trying to think of anybody else's expectations, but just truly trying to be reflective of my own experience, my past career. What are my core values? What's important to me to get out of this experience, and trying to have that longer view and set that intention of where I wanted to go. And I mean, UBC just has, I mean, the prestige is there with the university, the MBA program, of course. But being from Calgary, you know, I spent a lot of time out in Ontario as well for school. But being born and raised in Calgary, I really liked being close to the mountains. And of course, Vancouver is just all the nature you can have at your doorstep. So there's definitely a lot of that lifestyle piece that culminated into my decision. So it was pretty much the perfect program for me, because there was a lot of these other schools that offered an amazing program, but maybe the city didn't quite match up. And Vancouver and UBC just had that great balance of lifestyle as well as the rigor of the program. So for me, it was the most holistic and comprehensive school.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Why UBC as opposed to other schools in Canada?
By the way, I do want to say that we didn't pay them for what they're saying. We didn't pre-screen it, and we're not paying after either. Although when we can have beers together again, I'm buying.
I guess I can touch on it a little bit. For me, it was a clear decision when I knew kind of what I wanted to get out of the experience. I was really passionate about entrepreneurship. I kind of valued the Vancouver mindset, which is a little bit more sustainability focused, a little bit more lifestyle, health and wellness focused. I knew we were getting a world-class program, not only just in that entrepreneurship component, but you know, in marketing and product development, product service management, financing, consulting as well. It has everything that, you know, a lot of other great schools, you know, have, but it's in Vancouver as well. So, you know, in terms of that balance of, you know, one of the top schools in the world, really, to also be in Vancouver and to be relatively affordable and to have all of those things, for me, it was a no-brainer. I thought long and hard about where to go, and yeah, it was a fairly easy choice for me to make.
I'll jump in quickly. I'll keep it short this time, but for me, it was the size and how personal the program would be. I remember when I was scouting, I went to U of T, just didn't feel personal for me. I love that I know Paul, I know Rodrigo, I know Teresa, all of them know me. Our class is small, it's 100 people. Stuart actually gave the name idea for Barrelwise. It's my boss right now, went to the MBA 2 years ago. That intimate size, like I did a master's before, and I think in international programs, the prof is always very far away. I love in UBC how the staff and profs are very close to you. And that's something for me, just feeling that when you're closer to people, you can learn more from the prof and from your colleagues instead of being 400, 500. So for me, the size of the program was important in terms of getting that experience.
You're muted, Sal.
Sorry about that. In terms of the best course of the experience through the MBA program, what really stands out for you, whether it's academic or even personal? What was, when you think back, is there one thing that really sort of stands out for you?
Well, there are a lot of things, but if we're talking about the personal side, and I will also like to address that non-native English speaking alumni question, if it's a problem. Because it's funny that you asked, everybody thinks about it before coming in. But first to your question, the GIE stands out. I had the opportunity to go to India, and it was a life-changing experience. I got the opportunity to advise an NGO, and then went on crazy to the Himalayas to do some meditation stuff. So it was a life-changing experience. But it's so many things you can highlight about the program, as the peers, the courses, because you normally focus on the types of things that you're getting taught and probably what's going to happen with your career. but you get so much out of your peers only that that is extremely valuable. And to that question about non-native speakers, it's normal to have that concern. I would say at the beginning you will feel that you speak horrible English, although it's not true. And that happens, it's a combination of things, but the reality is that you have native English speakers that have the ability to make their comments or their voice being heard, and they just, in your mind, you think that they are saying it perfectly. But then you quickly forget about it, because there's so much team interaction and so much class interaction that you just have to speak, and you're going to be forced into it a bit, and you're going to get comfortable really fast. So don't worry about that.
Yes, one last question here. In connection with the connections that you maintain as an alumni, what is that like in terms of being a UBC alumni now? Do you still feel connected to the school? Do you still maintain those connections with people?
I'll take that one. I guess it's been 5.5 years since I graduated. I was going to say one of my favorite things about the MBA and why it's so worth it for me was it just opened so many doors, because I was able to meet people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. It's as simple as that. I wouldn't have met Rodrigo. I wouldn't have met all these professors, amazing professors, and I wouldn't have had all those opportunities in the jobs that I got because of the people that I met through the MBA. So it just opened so many doors. And of course, if those are meaningful relationships in your life, that makes a really big impact. You're not just going to turn your back on those relationships. No way. They stay in your life forever, which is why I'm still in such close contact with the program. And there's the classmates that I have from the program, they're still my closest friends today in a professional setting. If there's anything that I need, I have such an amazing group of peers to call on, because like I said, I don't use all those tools that I learn every day, but they do, and they certainly have specialties that I don't. So they become your friends and they become your allies in the business environment that we now work in. So it's great. It really is worth every penny to have that network available to me now and forevermore.
And this one's for you, Paul. One recommendation to succeed in the MBA program.
One, I think I put it as an answer to somebody's question earlier. I said, try to become more comfortable about being uncomfortable. And that's strange. It may sound like a strange thing. I'll say it again. Try to become more comfortable about being uncomfortable. So I think what happens is everybody coming into the MBA program is very driven. They've been high achieving in their previous lives. And I think everybody would be really disappointed if there wasn't a challenge, right? But the challenges make you uncomfortable because you can't be high achieving immediately. So it's recognizing that it's a transformational opportunity that you've heard from in different ways, I think very authentically from all of our alumni panelists is, if we'd asked them kind of the day that they were just before their final projects in their final term, what they thought, they probably would have been a little less flattering and complimentary about things. But but now it's given them the opportunity to change. So I think again, you heard from Nanette earlier, be kind to yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Take the chances, right? And become more comfortable about being uncomfortable.
Okay. And in these times where people are some people have had their lives change very quickly, is there anything that you would suggest, and this is an open question to the panel, is there anything in particular that they can do to prepare before they begin this program?
I think I would probably just try to remind people again that it is a pretty, just to tie in kind of what Susan was saying and what Paul was saying, it is such a transformational, challenging, personal growth journey, I think, for a lot of us. But as Nanette was saying, it's such a smaller class size. You've got 100 other people that are in the same boat as you. So really, make sure that you're leaning on those relationships. Definitely try to say yes as much as possible because it does fly by. But especially for me, there's been so many changes in the last couple months with working from home. Mental health, that's kind of the next wave that people are looking at coming out of this COVID pandemic situation. And I'd say, again, just the MBA experience is very intense. Remember to leave some time for yourself and for your loved ones as well. Making sure you're taking care of yourself because as soon as your health goes, everything else unwinds very rapidly. So that's something that I think some of us weren't quite as prepared for. It is a very intense program, but you're in it with some very amazing people, an awesome support network through UBC. Anytime we had a problem, we could talk to multiple people at the office or in our class. But at the end of the day, that's something that I would reiterate just through my own experience is it's remembering to take care of yourself as well. So make sure that balance is in as well, especially during these times.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of extra stress.
Indeed. Anybody else? Ways to prepare that you can think of that would...
Maybe I could add a little bit. I think Nanette already touched this, and Stuart as well. I think it's important to be strategic about your career and about your personal life. And I would say that it's important to see where you want to be, not like in 3 years, but like in 10 years, in 20 years, and try to find out what is your path, how you could get there. And find out the milestones on this path, what are your key points where you could get to the next level, and find out, is it MBA, is this next milestone, is it how it fits into this, right? Is it something that is, in my case, it was very important to transition through MBA to this entrepreneurial things, but I think everyone has different process, and it's important to see the whole picture. And I think the more you know the whole picture and trying to understand what is your future in 20 years, the more you can get from MBA, right? I agree that MBA sometimes is the way to pivot and to understand what you really want. And we had a lot of students that did this. But from other side, I think if you know what you want, MBA also a great way for you to get there, right? And to get all the knowledge, all the opportunities that are here. And I think you can accelerate this, right? Because you know what you want, and it's more like a technical, right? You're filling your gaps and you are running, right? So it's a double things, right? It's both ways is applicable. So this is my things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one quick thing. It's not a competition. It's not a competition. You're here. You're competing against yourself. If you're so eager to compete, do it against yourself. As Susan pointed out, a lot of your peers are going to become your network. So learn quickly to listen, because you're going to learn from everybody.
Okay, thank you. So Stuart, Susan, Christine, Jose, Nanette, Artyom, Paul, thank you very much for your time this evening. To everybody else out there around the world, we really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you to Ivan as well for your piece about the BCC. Tony, everybody who was involved in this. Paula, thank you for taking your evening and being supportive. We look forward to communicating with you, supporting you through this process. You can reach out at any time. We will be sending through an email with my contact information. If you'd like to book a Zoom virtual appointment with me, I'm willing to talk through any of the questions, detailed questions that you may have going forward. So again, I'm gonna end this panel right now. And I wish you all a good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world at this moment.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you guys.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks
to
for
see you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Okay. Good luck.
Bye-bye.